Welcome, my name is May.
And my name's Colleen, and today's tutorial is going to be all about magic loop. Now the magic loop method is a way of knitting a small circumference. I sound like a math teacher. What it means is small circles. So you can use them when you're looking at the top of a hat if you need to. It's small, so you need to be able to work with that. You can use the sleeve of a sweater. And the way I started Magic Loop was working on socks. And the idea was, it's a way, Magic Loop basically can replace working with double pointed needles.
I see, so you need the circular needles to do a magic loop.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so we will talk about that. But before we get started, I just want to talk about, it was invented by Sarah Hauschka, hopefully I'm saying that right, and it was popularized by Bev Galeskas in 2002.
So it's fairly new then.
It is fairly
It's not
new.
like old school, like
No.
back in the 1800s when they learned to knit and stuff.
So there's lots of tutorials on YouTube. Hopefully you'll enjoy this one. And I'm going to show you the idea of how you do Magic Loop, what's important, and hopefully give you some ideas of how to get started. So first of all, you're going to need a circular needle. Now I'm going to use some double knitting or DK yarn, just so it's easier to see. I've got my needles, and these are 32-inch circular needles. So these are from an interchangeable set, but that's what I've got. Now, when you do Magic Loop, you really want to get a cord that is going to be nice for you. You don't want it too loopy because it's going to be a little bit to maneuver. So I use 32-inch when I'm using a one sock or one hat or something like that. If I'm doing socks 2 at a time, then I have 40-inch circulars, just because you need that extra room to be able to maneuver. So that's what you need as far as that goes. So what we're going to do is we're going to get set up. If you want to follow along, that would be great. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put some stitches on the needles, because that's what we have to do first of all. Cast on regularly. I'm going to cast on 40 stitches. You're welcome to join me. So I'm going to cast on 40 stitches, and then I'll show you what we do. So here's going to be my 40th stitch. And so there's 40 stitches. Regular, I use the long tail cast on. Now I've got this lovely log cord, and it's going to form my magic loop. I take my stitches and I'm going to move them to the center of the cord. And then my job is to divide the stitches in two. So 20 on each side. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. There's my 20. I'm going to give them a little pull apart, fold my needle. So there's the wire, and then I'm going to pull on that loop, and that creates your magic loop. Now the trick is to get your needles oriented before you start knitting. And so the front needle gets pushed right in. And what I want to do before I do anything else, I want to make sure that I haven't twisted my stitches. So what I do is push the stitches so I can see. So that's the same as that, so I'm in good shape. Now it's the back needle that you pull out. So you're going to pull it out and swing it around, and then we're going to actually do some knitting. So I'm going to pretend this is the top of a sock, and I am going to do a knit 2, purl 2. And what I want to do is make sure I'm working from the ball of yarn. So that one I'm going to move that way because I don't want to mess up. And here I go. So I'm going to grab those stitches. Now I have to pull. Sometimes it's nice and easy to hold. And I'm going to knit 2. And then I'm going to purl 2. So this is normal knitting. You're pretending nothing's going on. Everything's okay. And I'm going to do that all the way across my 20 stitches. So I'm at the end of those 20 stitches. I'm going to do the last one. And then you're going to drop the needle that doesn't have stitches on it anymore. Just let it drop. Sorry for the noise. And then you're going to turn things around. Now here's where life gets interesting, because you want to make sure you're pulling out the right needle. You want to take this cord and push it back to create your magic loop again. And you're going to do a little bit of wiggling. Now, sometimes it helps to work on the back one. So I know this is the front needle, but sometimes you get distracted, you're watching TV, and then you're just not sure if you're pulling the right needle. And sometimes you can pull all the stitches out, which you don't want. So I'm going to pull on this one. There you go, that's my back needle. That's where the working yarn is attached to. I'm going to pull it, and that gives me a little bit more ease in these front stitches. So I'm going to move the front stitches up to the point. And I always find that first row makes life a little interesting, but once you get around. Now, you have to dip under because you're going to be knitting the first two. So you see, I'm just back there. I swing the needle around, and now I'm going to go back to knitting two, and purling two, and knitting two. And then I'm going to work all the way across, and then I'll show you what happens next. All right, so I'm up to the last 4 stitches. So I'm going to knit 2 and purl 2. There's my purl. Now before I start moving things around, I'm just going to give that's my end. I just want to give it a bit of a tug, and then I'm going to turn it around. So we've done 1 row. So you know you've done a row when the end of your yarn is right there. So that has done a full row. Now, same idea. I'm going to push this back a little bit. And now that I've done the first one, it'll push all the way back through. So you want those stitches up. Then you make sure you've got the back needle. So there's my working yarn. It's with the back needle. Pull it out. Swing around, and I'm dropping that underneath, and then I'm going to start going again. And you're just going to continue. Now, the first couple you want to really snug up because you've got to close that gap that you start with. And that happens with anything working in a round. And you just keep doing your knit 2, purl 2. Or if it's plain knit when you're working on a sleeve. And you're just going to keep doing the same thing. So every time you get to the end, and we'll do it one more time for you. Every time you get to the end, you drop the needle that doesn't have the stitches at the end. You drop it. You'll get this lovely long cable there. And then you flip things around, and then you reorient your needle. So there I am at the end. Once again, this needle, the tip doesn't have any stitches on, so I can drop it. I'm going to turn things around. I'm going to pull that back and give it a good push through. The needle with the working yarn is at the back. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to swing it around, and then I just want to make sure that because I'm knitting, that working yarn is on top of the needle. And then I go back to start. And guess what? We now can just keep working round and round and round. We'll get a lovely tube, so it could be a sleeve, it could be a sock, and you just keep working with that. I've just completed the round, and now I want to show you how you can tell when you've completed the round. There is my working yarn, and there is the end that I started with. So that's the tail end. And when they're at the same side, you've completed a full round. Now that makes total sense, except when you've got a long, long, long tube and you don't want to have to keep going all the way back and saying, do I have the 2 ends at the same spot? So I'm going to show you what I do. I take this. So here's the tube. It's a lovely sock. And I mark with a stitch marker where is the end of the round. And I just move this up as I go. So if you take a look at it, how the needles are set right now, I'm not done because both needles aren't at this side. So I have to finish another half a round before I'm finished the full round, and that's how I know. So I just put that stitch marker on and it will keep moving. I can just keep it moving up. It's not counting rows, it's just counting, okay, that's the start of the round. And that's going to show me that. Now, I've shown you how to do magic loop. Hopefully that made sense to you. If you have any questions, comment down below. Let me know what I can do to help you out. Some people may say, why magic loop? Okay, if you like your double pointed needles, some people say, I don't need to know magic loop. So the reason why I started doing magic loop was because you and I were traveling in the car. And I was knitting socks on 4 needles. And then
You would drop the needle.
I dropped one.
We'd have to pull over and find the needle.
Exactly. So if one of the needle dropped and you're in the car, it's either to the side, it's at your feet, you can't see it, you can't knit. And so I figured I needed a way so that my needles were always attached. And that's what happens when you do magic loop. The needle's there, you just flip it around, it's not going to fall out. And so it's helpful that way. It also lets you not have to worry if the stitches are going to slip off your DPN. They don't slip that easy off of this. Now, you do have to watch your cord. It's called Memory. So this is not too bad. That's an Addy. This is a Chowgu. Now, it's a bigger needle. It's not too bad to work. You saw that one. Now, Chowgu makes fixed circular sock needles. These cords are beautiful. There's another 32-inch. So you can see, not much memory, easy to move. And then they do have an interchangeable set, and I've spoken about this before, and these are very, very lovely cords to work with. It makes that turnaround easier. And as I mentioned, if you're just using the top of a hat, a sock, a sleeve, and you've only got one, then a 32-inch circular needle is better because a 40-inch is just that much longer to pull through. So that's magic loop. I hope that's going to work for everybody. And thank you so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe. Until next time,
You take care.